sort of like the colour coordination of the three. That works for me.
My son had told me I'm dapper.
Who's techie? Well, yeah. How old is he?
19.
Yeah, you take that.
What's he studying at?
Psychology and cognitive neuroscience.
Okay. I struggled with a follow-up question there. I thought I would. I thought that'd be all right.
I think I produce something.
This one, no, it's way back.
So gents, welcome. I think this is now going to be episode 5 of the DISRUPTOR Podcast. And we started this podcast with the intention of really looking at positive disruptors in the cybersecurity industry. But I think we're on episode 5, and by the time we get to this point, we've had 3 people who aren't from cyber and 2 people that are. So we're definitely, I think the reason why we wanted to make it something that wasn't just about cyber was it could really branch out, and we're just keen to understand. We see of what we're doing as Utopia Cyber UK as being a real positive disruptor for many reasons that we've spoken about, but really keen to speak to people to understand really what they determine to be a positive disruptor. And I think the more we go outside of cyber, the more it'll just be more interesting for a broader audience. That's great. David, thank you for joining me for hosting duties for the first time. Last set it was me, you and Lee just having a chat, but now thank you for joining me on that. And Richard, so we follow a structure with this that we stick to with every single guest. We'll let you introduce yourself, which we'll come to shortly. We then, following that, we ask a bit about what is the status quo in your industry or with your business. We ask then a little bit why you're sort of challenging that and how you think you're challenging it. We ask what your definition of a positive disruptor is and how you believe you or your business is that. And then the last question we've introduced is a question that's set by AI. So we asked ChatGPT, other AI platforms are available, and we asked ChatGPT, we give them the whole brief of the session and asked them to set a question, and they sort of finished with the last one. So that's it. So it's great. So Richard, firstly, thank you for joining us on the DISRUPTOR Podcast. Give us a bit of an intro into yourself, please.
Okay, thanks for having me. So I'm Richard. I'm the founder of a company called Play It Green. We help businesses engage in sustainability and nature repair and social impact, and we make it easy and positive for the business.
So talk us through your sort of past before going into this space. So is it what's your sort of professional journey been like over the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, however far you want to go back?
It's been varied. I worked with corporate retail for 20 years. Prior to that, I was at university. I studied psychology and philosophy, which had a major impact on my whole career. I studied behavioural change, evolutionary psychology, all the stuff of why we do what we do. And then in philosophy, sort of why we're here. And one of the things I discovered is we're here to do good. We're not just here to make money. And I became what you call a conscious capitalist when I was at uni. So we do need to make money and be rewarded for success. For hard work, but we also, I think, need to look at other people in the world as well as shareholders. Retail was a fight against the money people and the bottom line and that short-termism of the next quarter's profit. So I left that. Set a business up with a school friend, did really well with that. And then really what got me into what I do now was a role with a not-for-profit. I got approached by their founder about 8 years ago. He was planting trees in Tanzania and creating what we call agroforestry businesses. So that's an agroforestry farm mimics nature. So you have trees, plants and shrubs all together. And it creates an economy for overland communities. And over a 3-year period, I helped him scale that. And then they got investment, and I felt the investors didn't share my values as a person. So I left that and set Play It Green up to help businesses do more than just repair nature, because that's not what we need now. It's a lot more. That's what got me here.
Talking about the status quo, I guess in regards to sort of green and sustainability across the board, I'm sure this will vary with sector and size of organizations and location, but generally, how big a concern is it for organizations at this moment in time? And have you seen any of that sort of trend change in the time that you've had the business?
Yeah. I think the biggest trend is head in the sand. A lot of businesses are not wanting to change because they think sustainability is going to be difficult and expensive, time consuming. And I think then you've got the other side, which is the legislation. Companies just tick boxes. They do the minimum they have to do. And that's not what we need now. It's a culture change that's needed. Everything needs to be done slightly differently as we evolve.
Something that we've noticed with Utopia Cyber, which is quite not unexpected, but it's definitely something that we didn't think would be a sort of a focus area, is organisations' ESG targets. So whereas we think we're doing a great job for people in cybersecurity, we can help save them money, simplify processes and whatever, actually we've been approached by organisations as a commercial team, supplier team, and say, no, we want to work with you because of we're making big commitments to philanthropy, to charity and good causes. Is that becoming more of a case of this isn't a nice to have or trying to do the right thing? There's literally sort of legislation that says that you have to go down that route now. And does that push organisations to work with your companies like yourself?
Yeah, so there's definitely been a change. Just going back to what you said earlier about the change over the last few years, I would have said probably in the last 5 years, there's been a huge change. Mainly driven by Gen Z and young millennials becoming the largest employee and spending group, and their values are sustainability, social impact, transparency. They don't like spangly marketing, they like real stories. And that's driving business decisions around employment, around brand. It's becoming a must rather than just a nice to have in a box checking exercise.
What's in it for businesses when they talk to you as an organisation?
So it's really interesting because about 7 years ago, I met the board of a very well-known restaurant group. I met the CEO. He loved what we were doing. They were going to plant trees by adding a pound to bills, and he thought it was great. And then I met the CFO, and the CFO said, "What's in it for us?" And at that time, it was really a case of, well, you're doing good, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas now, what's in it for you is you're going to attract better staff, because 60% of employees are looking at ESG before they apply for the job. 30% are turning jobs down if they get offered jobs with companies with poor track records. Supply chain, as you just mentioned, if you're in a supply chain and you are engaged fully in sustainability and social impact, that is going to make you far more attractive to businesses than companies that aren't.
Just thinking for the purpose that we're doing a podcast and we don't know who's necessarily going to be listening to it, I realise I've fallen guilty to saying ESG, and therefore, would you actually probably explain it way more eloquent than I can, what ESG stands for and why this is so now significant to UK and broader corporations?
Yeah. So ESG is a sort of evolution of CSR, corporate social responsibility, and stands for environmental, social and governance. So it's basically looking at your business's impact on the environment and what you're doing to reduce that and protect the environment. Social is on the community and how you sort of your staff and your teams and things like that. And then governance is the policies that you have in place, like diversity policies and equality policies and things like that.
Okay. So I think something that we've done in recent times, and it's a bit this whole focus on philanthropy and charity. It was something that was born out when we launched Utopia, and it's something that David, Lee, and I have said we're not going to deviate from, we're not going to move from. And I was able to participate because of that in an event in Manchester, Getting to Food, a fantastic organisation where we worked with other people from other companies, took food that was going out of date in a few days' time and turned it into 1,800 meals for homeless and people that are unable to cook for themselves. The thing that I found most fascinating, it was brilliant being there and really inspiring, but the thing that I found most fascinating was speaking to people of, say, 25 to 30 and then being there and their organisations being so. They were like, if I wasn't allowed to do something like this on a bi-monthly basis, I'd go and work somewhere else. Yeah. And I genuinely felt if it was one that was saying it, you think that maybe that's just what you would say because you're at this sort of charity, this great event. But I felt there was kind of sincerity now. Is that, do you see that there's the younger generation now is going, actually, it's not just who I work for, what the benefits are, what the package is. It's actually what else does this company do for the world? Because being frank, when I was in my early mid-20s, that didn't matter that much to me at all. Are you seeing like a shift and change in that?
Yeah, so if you look at young millennials, they are the first fully digital generations that have had access to the internet since birth. And they have slightly different values. And I was saying before, they value transparency, they value impact, they value experience over money. And there's been a huge change, and all the research, so Pricewaterhouse and a lot of other research companies have done research, and there was one into, I think it was 14,000 employees, and that's where that data around 70% came from. Literally 7 out of 10 employees in that bracket are looking at your company's ESG before they even apply.
So quite a varied career up until the point of launching this business. Yeah. When did you launch it? How long has the business been around?
So we were launched in April 21, so we're just over 4 years old.
So coming out of the pandemic, decide that to launch a business. That's quite brave on quite a number of levels. I can imagine. What was the sort of the main drive that said, right, this is it. This is why I need to do this now.
So it's really interesting to say there's some total life experience. I'm also neurodiverse, and I've always been told that's not going to work, or you're not going to be able to do that. And even in the previous role with the not-for-profit, I had loads of ideas and ways we could do more impact. And the boss would always say, no, just stick to selling. And post that role, I just thought this is my last chance to literally create a business with everything I thought the world needed. And a way to create culture change in business, because that's what's needed.
In regards to what's been from start, I mean, the obvious thing is the pandemic and coming out of that. I guess when you go into before the pandemic, you've got businesses with huge offices, and sort of we move away from that to working from home, working remotely. So that's one thing. But what have you kind of seen have been the sort of the biggest challenges of launching a business at that time, when the world completely flipped on its head and turned into, especially from a corporate perspective or working perspective, was totally different?
Do you know, it was actually, I think we were very lucky to launch at that time, because people had been given a chance to stop and do nothing for a year, and a lot of businesses reassessed what was important to them and their values. I think people saw nature clean up a little bit in that 12 months as well. Mm-hmm. And so when suddenly a business owner is then approached by a company that says, look, we can educate your staff, we can repair the planner, and grow as you grow with that impact. Suddenly, rather than companies being skeptical, they're like, yeah, we really get that. That's important.
In regards to, and excuse my ignorance in this area of it, what is sort of, is there anything that's changed from, like I said, from a legislature, from a government perspective, from the things that now mandated that organisations have to do to be more green or whatever? Is that I know there's always been things, but has things changed in recent times since you launched the business that have really helped to favour when you're taking this conversation to potential customers?
So things haven't changed very much yet. The government introduced SECR, so this is mandated carbon reporting for larger businesses. But they are by 2027 going to bring in legislation for SMEs as well around carbon reporting and nature impact reporting. So it's going to be for everyone. So the businesses that start now getting ahead of the curve, and we're seeing that. And it's not just ahead of the curve when it comes to legislation. It comes for brand value, for attraction to employees.
David, I'm going to demonstrate how long I've known you. But I think, so I've known you in my time working for one of the UK's largest supermarkets, one of the UK's largest banks, a smaller financial service organisation, and then one of the UK's largest law firms. Excellent. I got them all right. I've not missed one. Oh no, I did. I did a gaming company as well. There we go. Missed that one. Missed that one as well.
I've been proud of it.
I was really proud of myself there. But have you seen this issue addressed in, because I said with some of those companies are quite new and modern, whereas one, that you're currently been around for a very long time. How have different industries and different companies addressed this issue in the last 50 years?
I first got introduced to the whole concept. You mentioned just like the responsibility acronym before we had ESG, right? And that was at the stockbrokers where I didn't know you. We had an employee at that organisation with a role. So it was one person out of an organisation, like 1,200 individuals. One person was being responsible and making sure that the organisation was responsible. But now I'm in legal sector. ESG's a thing that we use to be able to support pitching to clients because clients ask for it. So these are large corporate businesses continually ask for what is your footprint, particularly around carbon, because there's legislation in that space today. So I've seen it grow massively on a personal level. At most of those organisations you so well remembered and named, or didn't. I think it's definitely becoming more and more important. What I'm possibly concerned around, and I'm an advocate for the ESG space, but I am a little bit concerned around it being somewhat devalued over the last 6 to 9 months by what's happening in the States, what's happening politically in the UK as well, and reduction of budget realistically in that space for organisations. Are you seeing that? Are you feeling it at the moment?
From a political standpoint, yes.
Yeah.
But from a business standpoint, no.
Oh, okay.
Actually, what we've seen is a lot of businesses are doubling down. They are aware that governments come and go, but their business is going to be here longer than 4 years, and they are still the values of the people they want to attract to spend money with them and to be employed by them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What was your big break when you launched the business 4 years ago? Was there a thing that kind of went, oh, that's it, now we've got it, now we can see where we can take this business forward?
Yeah, because we originally launched as a subscription service for individuals and families.
Okay.
And we still have that side to the business, but it was when a business signed up.
Yeah.
And they had 10 staff. And I think the weekly tip we'd done was a shampoo bar on the Friday, and we'd managed to wire a free one if you signed up and gave them your details. And the owner called us a few weeks later and he was like, I can't believe what you've done to my business. And I'm like, what we're done? And he goes, everyone got a shampoo bar. Yeah. And he went, now they're all asking us what we're going to do about going green as a business.
Brilliant.
And literally that's where the business has come. We pivoted from just being, because we signed up 10 subscriptions at once, but then this business wanted to know how to change. And if we can make that easy, we know that there's going to be a million other businesses that want to do exactly the same, and so the whole goal is to make that whole journey
fantastic
easy.
Yeah for organisations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think to look at it on the other side, and touch on something David said, I think it's an important topic for everybody, but business and day-to-day life can take over, and so that again is the challenge in itself in regards to how do you kind of address that. What sort of support can you give businesses in this space? How, if they always engage with you, how can you help them address this challenge and effectively take that headache away?
So I'll give you a good description before I say how we do it. We work with a big tech firm, and they've recently changed their charity because the revenue they're giving us is going up and up as they grow, and we've tied into their sales. And they've chosen a charity that supports one of the directors' sons who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
Oh, okay.
And so they're going to be giving quite a lot of money to this charity quarterly because we give 10% of any revenue generated back to charity. And they said, let me get it right, weaving social value into everything we do, all whilst guiding us on sustainability and maintaining profit for our stakeholders. That's what we call great business. And that's what we do. And what we do is we do it by making sustainability simple. We engage the staff and educate them, which creates that sort of grassroots up culture change within the business. We provide tools to guide you on the journey, and then we provide signposting to experts. And whilst you're doing that, and it's a journey that can take 20 years, you have a more immediate impact by supporting nature-based solutions. So we plant agroforestry trees in Senegal, we do coastal mangroves in Kenya, and we do sea kelp off the coast of Canada. And that's all blockchain protected as well, so we can prove that the supply chain is transparent and who planted what, where, and when, and which it's grown by.
If you don't mind me asking, then I'm maybe going a little bit deeper here, but from a personal perspective, going from what you went through before and what life was like in a corporate, I can kind of relate to this a couple of months in, so I'm really curious to hear about this from a longer term. If they're going from something that was really quite cutthroat, profit, sales-led, commercial-led, to going something where it's genuinely purpose over profit. And we've spoken before, I get that. How do you shift from that? Because it's something on a personal level is something that I get a huge amount of satisfaction from. We were just talking before we started about this week was the giving away the date of when we're filming this, but it was the biggest event in our industry, this InfoSec event, and it was great to be stood in queues waiting to speak to people or just getting a coffee or something like that, and people that I've known for decades coming over and going, nobody's doing what you're doing, no one's doing it with this focus. All I can say is I hope you carry on doing it. I hope it's a success. And our industry isn't always that nice. So it was lovely to hear those messages from people, and that was really great. But from you, you're way longer into that journey. How did you transition from that, and what did you find maybe that was the biggest challenges with it?
So I'm very lucky. I mean, going back to being neurodiverse, I process dopamine differently, and I've always been sort of involved in doing good, whether it's coaching kids football or charity work and things. And it was when I started the role with the not-for-profit, we got to visit Tanzania, and I got to visit the communities we were helping. And there was like a switch in my brain that was like, my God, by doing the work that I do, I can help these people in a completely different part of the world have a better life. And literally now, I mean, I spent the first 2 years of this business not earning very much at all, and having to borrow and beg and steal to, not steal, but to pay the mortgage and keep clothes and the kid and stuff. But I knew that every day that I woke up, that there was impact happening, and now I get up every day and we hit the impact meter on our website and see the number of plantings that we've done go up, and I know that related to that is hours of employment going up and food scarcity going down and female empowerment going up in all these communities around the globe.
It goes on very, very nicely to what my next topic was, our next question was in regards to, I think it'll be difficult to find people that would get on this podcast who are being as positive a disruptor as yourself and your organization, and that's fair to say. I mean, when you have a meter that you can wake up to every day that says the impact that we're making, David noted for future conversations for us with the business.
Digging your eyes.
So I'm definitely going to steal that, but or at least plagiarize it. I think for me, when you hear the term positive disruptor, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
For me, it's people that create societal change, that do things differently, that sort of sets the tone for other people to follow suit. I think when you're told no, it's not going to work, if you have enough belief and you can see the future is better if it happens, that's when disruption happens.
How do you, in what way would you say that you see that your business is a positive disruptor? I mean, there's probably hundreds of ways. So I'd say what would be the key areas where you take great pride from the fact that that is a term that is very much aligned to your business.
So probably the best is making it easy to create that sustainable change, because at the moment you pay consultants tens of thousands of pounds, you have to put someone in charge that then needs a team and we make it easy through the education, through the signposting. It's just as simple as sending an email to start the change. And so many businesses just don't do it because they're scared to get it wrong or they don't know where to start. And we solve those problems. And for me, it's change that's needed.
Yes, I guess some organisations see it as losing profit because they're having to invest in ESG. And you talk about making it easy. Does easy mean low cost?
It means low cost. It means and this is a sort of fallacy really, that it costs in the long term sustainability. It's kind of like, it's like an investment in shares.
Yeah.
It might cost you a little bit in the short term, but in the longer term, it's going to save you money and make you money. And, it's up to businesses to make the most of the change that we can make.
Dale, I was going to ask a question for you. We've talked about, we've worked in the same industry for a long time. you've written RFPs, I've responded to them. And in some of them, there has definitely been, especially I've seen more in recent times, not just from yourself, but from the ones that we've worked on, where this ESG, social impact and whatever. How important is that for organizations? Let's go back. I think it's always been there for the last 20 years, but how important is it now in regards to when you're making that decision? I guess you probably wouldn't make the decision to go to one just for that reason, but can it be a potential deciding factor if two organisations very much neck and neck?
It's certainly a score on a scoring sheet, right? It's certainly something that you'd score higher for an organisation that fully supports your organisation's targets, strategy in ESG space for sure. Would it be a deciding factor? I wouldn't have said so, to be perfectly honest. I think that if cost came in really low, but ESG wasn't there, I do think businesses would still go with the lower cost option, to be perfectly frank with you. I think organisations have, and some organisations you rightly mentioned, Richard, have a legal accountability for parts of this space. They have strategies in place to be able to require the organisation to behave in the right way in the ESG landscape, but it's not the same for all organisations. And I've worked with very, very large organisations and very small niche organisations throughout the career, and the smaller niche ones really don't have a legal requirement or a concern about it right now. I think having the conversation about making it easy for organisations to engage with better sustainability is an interesting one, because then it does feel like you can spread the love a little bit wider, and maybe those tick boxes will get ticked more frequently in some of the RFPs.
Whilst, therefore, you're saying it's on the scoring chart, but it's not necessarily one that would define it one way or the other.
I don't think so.
In a sense of branding, in a sense of creating what that brand looks like, we've been very, very clear from the start that this is something that we're not going to deviate from. We are leading with that. And to be honest, it's probably got us more traction than if we didn't, and we accept that. Therefore, there's also a responsibility that we don't deviate from that moving forward. And that's been a positive for what we've done. We've only been around as a business like around 6 months, and I think we've got awareness and people aware of what we're doing, because that's at the forefront of every conversation that we're having. Is there an argument that says that that's the value that you guys can bring, in a sense of not necessarily a competitive edge when it comes to winning business, but creating a view of what your brand looks like now and moving forward, and the commitment to actually making this world a bit of a better place?
I think that's a part of it, but I think also if you look at the sort of tendering process and things like that for local councils and most corporates now, 30% of the tendering process is around governance and environment and social.
And I was going to comment, and I was going to comment, because obviously on that long list of things that I remembered so accurately, on there wasn't the public sector, and I've got from selling to. And I remember we've literally, because we didn't complete that section to a level that was deemed acceptable, we were eliminated from bids in the industry, in the services that I've provided to you in the past. So I get in public sector that's more important. Can I ask why that's the case in your side? What experience? Why is that so significant there compared to the corporate world? It kind of contradicts itself in a way, because actually I find that the public sector world has always been more cost conscious. So if a company came in with the lowest cost possible, but weren't very green or weren't making a positive impact, social impacts, you'd have thought that'd have been okay. But why do you think public sector focus on it so much?
I think it varies from council to council, but public sector are representing to a degree the government, and the government's policies around SNCR and things. But I think also with corporates now, that's changing. So I'll give you a good example. This tech firm that I was talking about, they have a range of laptops that are reconditioned, and we calculate the footprint for reconditioning and for distribution, and then they have invested in enough nature-based solutions to rebalance that small footprint. So when a corporate buys 1,000 laptops off them, normally if they were brand new laptops, the carbon for the manufacture and distribution of those laptops would go on the corporate carbon accounts. These reconditioned ones don't, because they're carbon neutral. So they are a more attractive product for the corporate to buy. And then looking at investment and things like that as well, there's $39 trillion in investment for companies with ESG embedded into them. And we've seen, because we've got we've got 6 customers that've got big investment, and we've talked to the investment house for a couple of them, and a big part of what they do now when they're looking at and assessing a business is around ESG. So it's not just from a tendering point of view, but also an investment point of view.
And in the last sort of 4 years that the business has been in place, have you found a particular success with any particular certain sectors or size of organisations or whatever?
All the way across, from micro businesses up to the biggest company we work with at the moment is G4S.
Okay.
And I met their UK sales team and talked to them about what they do, and the enthusiasm that came across from all of them was incredible.
Yeah.
So really, any business size that engages in ESG, A, they're doing the right thing, which is great. B, the team knows that as the business grows, if they've embedded it into the business, their positive impact grows as well.
What 4 years in, despite the fact that I think obviously the business is successful and what frustrations do you still have from a professional and personal perspective around this space? Where what still needs to be done and it isn't at that point yet?
From a professional point of view, there are too many people within the industry that use jargon, charge too much, take advantage of businesses' lack of knowledge, when actually any business can engage in sustainability.
Sounds ridiculously familiar from an industry point of view.
Correct.
What a wonderful guess. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but yeah, the consultants scare businesses, and they helicopter in, they tell them what to do. That doesn't change the culture of the business. I had a great saying: you can't change culture with a spreadsheet. And you literally can't. You can measure and you can reduce, but you can't change the culture. And that's what we need. We need people thinking slightly differently about business, and not just the bottom line, but tying that into, well, how can we use our profit for good as well as for the shareholders? And that way you go to bed at night, and if you're successful as a businessman, you can respect yourself.
But surely, looking at it from the sense of we all agree that as hiring people in their 20s, when I was in my 20s, this didn't matter. But, not just with me, across the board of most of my friends, or that's now changed. Even with people of my age, I'm a little bit older than that. But people, from speaking to people at this event, how important that is to them. But they're going to be the senior management and the decision makers of organisations moving forward. So there is going to be a shift and a change there. So it will impact profitability eventually. That goes without saying. Getting ahead of the curve is quite important. But yeah, I can understand that. What about on a personal level? This must be a cause that is so close to your heart. What frustrates you, and what challenges do you see that you're still trying to overcome now?
I don't have enough patience. One of the things that I've learned is the bigger the business you work with, the longer it takes to get going.
Yeah.
And we are now speaking to global businesses, so it can take a year. Other frustrations is just the way people do business sometimes, those ghostings and the, but I've just started listening to the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, and it's actually very good. So I'm learning to let them.
And as somebody who's just recently started a business that's got a huge focus on trying to do the right thing by people in the industry and what we're doing, but also with this big focus on philanthropy and helping good causes. What advice would you give us in the sense of, you've started a business from scratch at a very difficult time, and you've been on that journey, you've been through this initial 3 years that we've gone through. What advice would you give to us, or to any organisation starting up now where a huge focus on it is trying to do some good in the world?
A few bits of advice is you can't do it on your own. It's got to be done through collaborations and partnerships. That always magnifies a message and strengthens you stronger together. Don't stop believing.
Something in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That's true as well.
And then the third one is show gratitude. Every Friday at the end of the week, I'll look back on the week and look at the things that I can be thankful for. And it kind of grounds you. So however bad your week's been, there's always going to be some stuff that you can be thankful for if you're still breathing. So, yeah.
Good. Okay, so I did say that the last question that we ask, and it's been really difficult because I've known this has been the question. I've been wanting to ask it and I've had to avoid it. But this is, again, gone into ChatGPT. So I set the whole sort of agenda, shared your LinkedIn and everything like that, and said, ask a question to ask around being a positive disruptor. They said, what was the defining moment that made you shift from a traditional commercial path to becoming a sustainability-driven entrepreneur? And how did you navigate the challenge of disrupting an industry from a values-first perspective? We've asked elements of that in it, but not that question as a whole. But yeah, was there a particular moment where you're like, right, this is it?
Do you know, there probably wasn't a real particular moment, but I think after I finished with a not-for-profit, and it ended not in a great way, and there was a bit of burnout and a bit of therapy involved, but I think after that I just took that decision. If you excuse my language, I just said fuck it, and this is the chance and this is the time.
You might be first person to swear on the podcast, but it'll stay. It's all right. It can stay. I know through that at all, because yeah, I get it.
And it was that moment, and I've never looked back. It's just been a journey from then.
Wow. Clearly is loving it. He's clearly loving it. It's brilliant to see. Thank you.
I think for me, the reason why we did this was to be honest, to meet people like yourself. And I think it's a very good way for me to spend half an hour of my life sort of talking about. I mean, Rich and I met and virtually and spoke a number of times. And it's like I said to the guys, this is someone we've just got to have in this podcast, because when you think of the term positive disruptor, I think, it'll be very difficult. If there was sort of a leaderboard and we were doing it, I think you'd be very much up there and it'd be hard to kind of change it. But genuinely fascinating to meet you, really inspiring, and for the journey that we're going on, it's great to see the success that you've having and the fact you've not deviated from that at all. We are going to work with you. We are going to work with you on a professional basis, which is great, and looking forward to seeing what more we can do together. I think there's real business kindred spirits there. But Richard, thank you. David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.